Alright, I thought I'd do a quick video here since I haven't done one in a while. This will be a wildflower video, not so much ants. I seem to be having some success with various things here. This is Trillium erectum, which I'm getting a lot of these are finally establishing an opening this year. These are pollinated by flies. This is Trillium grandiflorum, which is pollinated by bees. And these are basically the three that you see sold in most stores when you buy them. Grandiflorum is particularly pretty. This is Trillium luteum over here. It's the yellow one. It actually has a nice fragrance to it. It's like a lemony or citrusy kind of fragrance. And all three of these disperse their seeds by ants, or once they establish, you can see down there, lots of stems, they kind of divide. And that's one thing here. So you end up with a clump here, and every year, or every other year really, they send up an additional stem. But these are monofloral, so these, that's the only flower you get for the year. If something happens to it, then, well, that's it. But otherwise, they just, they look pretty. It's like not the kind of thing you can mass produce, but it's kind of a pretty thing there. This is woodland poppy, which I have a whole lot of. I started with just 4 of these back over here, planted in a row right over here. Their seeds are also dispersed by ants, and all the yellow, basically throughout this garden, I really didn't have a hand in planting. I might have taken a seed pod now and then and trying to toss them somewhere, over there. But for the most part, this, I'd say the majority of that patch over there was not me. And friendly Phacelia is the purple you're seeing here, or majority of the purple anyway. And we'll get to that garden in a little bit here. Other trilliums I have here, and let's see, they're not really doing anything. This is like a trouble spot in the garden. But these actually go well with certain other plants here. This is Jacob's Ladder. It's a kind of a evergreen ground cover, or semi-evergreen. I'm not sure if it's a full evergreen. I have 2 more of these. Red Trillium here, or Trillium erectum. And they kind of vary a little bit. These are also Trillium erectum, but you can see they're much bigger plants. This one's, the flower is like 3 times as big as the other one there. The same thing though, they can kind of invest energy into either more stems or making a bigger plant and a bigger flower display. This flower to this one, it smells like kind of like rotting fish kind of thing here. Thankfully, you have to stick your nose practically inside the flower to observe that effect. It does not carry through the air. But from afar, I mean, it's one of the prettier ones, I would say. More friendly Phacelia. I just love using that as like a filler. And then this is the dandelion, which we'll pull out. I'll probably just spread that in another garden, but oh well. And more Jacob's Ladder here. Earlier in the year, I had twin leaf flowering. That's what this plant here is, and these used to be the flowers. But now they're moving on to seed pods. Those are also dispersed by ants. They have a lysosome on the seeds, but they don't really spread as readily, I've noticed. It's kind of like a wetland-ish plant, but it's not really, it doesn't spread like mad in my yard. So, I'm trying to think about what else to show in this particular garden. All the interesting stuff's on the other side. This is wild geranium, which hasn't started flowering yet, and then this is Virginia bluebells, which are pretty much done. I hear people say Virginia bluebells go nuts, they get weedy, they get really bad, and sure enough, if you Google Virginia bluebell, you can find pictures where that plant has pretty much taken over the entire forest floor. And so far, after growing a number of them, I don't really see it. But maybe I'll give it a decade and we'll see what happens there. Let's see. This is roundleaf ragwort. Name's not very appealing, but if you want yellow and some height to it, this is a really good shade plant. Trouble is, most of the foliage is way down here, and I have a non-native, bleeding heart in this garden. I bought it initially thinking it was native, and I had it planted out front, but I decided, it just looks too pretty to get rid of, so I put it in the backyard instead. And I've since divided it and sent it to friends, and people love it. It's not invasive as far as I can tell, but it does get to be a little substantial for what it is. So I do have to divide it every so often. And I'm having another problem in this garden. I removed a shrub here last year, and we call it Indian strawberry. It's this little creeping yellow flower here. That kind of went nuts over the past year. I'm just kind of realizing it's a problem now, but I have to take care of it. And then I have some hydrangeas that are establishing here as shrubs that'll be more substantial for this location. And up here, I actually have the one of our native flame azaleas, but none of these have actually opened up just yet. And I completely forget the name of this, but I think it's a viburnum of some kind. So just looking at the flower structure there. And over here we have an eastern red bud, which I like. Looks pretty. It doesn't get any real caterpillar activity as far as I've noticed. It's listed as a host plant, but not... I've never seen anything use it locally. And then this vine here kind of consumes the shed every year. This is actually a pipe vine, which the flowers are insignificant for the moment here. There's one right there. But last year I actually got pipe vine swallowtails, and I'm like right on the edge of their habitat, so that was a plus in my book. So down here, I bought a bunch of Trillium flexipes, and that's what this one is here. You can see the petals are not ribbed at all. They're kind of straight. The whole flower is more of a perfect triangle almost. I'm told this is one also, but I see pictures online that say, no, this is Trillium erectum kind of thing here. We have a population of Trillium erectum that has a white flower, which this looks like, but I still think this is just Trillium flexipes. Like, that's what it came with. But flexipes, their pollinanthers are also very pale, and you can see it's also in the pedicellid group, so there's a stem here. Whereas these ones are in the sessile group. You can see there's no stem after the leaves. There is a stem under the leaves, but not on top separating the flower. And these are pretty much done for prime. I think there's a spider actually living in that flower. But this is, I believe, Trillium cuneatum, which is a very nice fragrance. And it flowers. The other oddity with Trillium flexipes is they're supposed to make a red seed pod, like right at the end of where the flowers are on all these. It's supposed to be like a red berry, like a seed pod, and deer supposedly disperse the seeds there. The population that I have here has never really done that, so I'm not sure how to comment with it. But ants are pretty much the main distributor of seeds of trilliums, so maybe there's just a competing evolutionary pressure. If the seeds can survive the digestive system of a deer, then more power to it. But normally trilliums don't want to get eaten by deer. In fact, that's kind of the strategy that these trilliums are using here. So deer do not see, they have trouble seeing it's like a solid leaf here. Like, they could probably make that out perfectly. They don't have color vision, rather. So by having sort of a mottled pattern on the leaves, they're not able to see as well. It looks just as confusing as all these leaves here to the Jacob's ladder next to it. Not that I've ever had deer in my yard, though I really have pictures of them outside the fence here. Yeah, none of them have made the leap here. This is another Trillium grandiflorum, and I don't have Trillium flexipes next to me, but you can see how the petals on this one, they're little, really kind of ruffled. And you can see the pollen in there. That is a nice yellow color, so that's one of the markers of Trillium grandiflorum. And then this, I believe, is just Trillium sessile. Right there, though I'm kind of have to squint a little bit at those. I'm not like 100% on those. It's in the sessile group. It might be Trillium sessile itself, but I don't know for sure because I've had more success growing. To step on some things here. This Trillium here, which is a different species. Smells like rotting apples, but in a good way. There's like a sort of a it's pungent, but it doesn't make your nose twinge. You go, ooh, that's disgusting. But you know, it's more like yeah, that smells like, you know, apples that are a little bit past their you know, what you'd want to eat. You know, and they do that to attract in their pollinator, which are these little active flies here. Actually, there's a dancing fly right there. Usually you don't see those on them. But this is Ozark Trillium. And Ozark Trillium, the petals are more of a, they're wide up top, they're overall kind of narrow, they're kind of tall relative to the pollinanthers. And they usually have this, like, they're green or yellow at the tips, and then they kind of turn red or blush down there, down below. Over here is a patch of May apples, which I've been telling myself, oh, I'm going to move these someday. I've been saying that for like 5 years now. And they always have their flowers underneath. They kind of create their own little forest under here to create a humid environment. And that helps the beetles and things that normally flower or pollinate their flowers do their thing here. You can kind of see some flower buds hanging out there. It's always the ones that have 2 leaves that have the flower bud here. And there's some more flexipes poking up here. There was a red Trillium here. I guess that's this here, but it's not flowering just yet. Over here, this is plumleaf azalea, which, if it does flower this year, would be nice. It would be nice, and also it'd probably do so in August, which is rather strange for the whole rhododendron genus. This is something I regret planting all in here. This is Virginia waterleaf, which is about to start flowering. I just wish it wasn't as aggressive as it was, because there were, you know, other stands of Trillium in here that would probably be doing a little better. Yes, I love native plants, but I hate having to weed them out. Like this used to be a nice big patch of you know, this plant here, and I could actually very easily point out, oh yes, look at the little baby Trilliums and stuff. But I can't really do that, so I may have to, I think what I'll do is just prevent them from dropping seeds this year and see if that helps the problem. So, moving on, back to this garden here. Coming around, this is a witch hazel. I found that it's actually 2 witch hazels, because I've allowed the rootstock to grow on accident. I get yellow flowers from this one in the fall, kind of mid-December kind of months, and then this one in January, February, I get all these purple flowers, which was the cultivar amethyst. And before we move on here, I've actually added twisted Trillium to my garden this year, which gets its name by the petals actually twisting around. Plant Delights Nurseries started selling some of those, along with a few others. I got a few more Plant Delights selections in here too. No, really, it's just the one. Cecily of Hort is what this is supposed to be, but I'm not entirely sure. I believe this is closer to what they were selling, but it either isn't really, they might be reproducing it by seed, but I'm not sure what the story is with that. And then this isn't open yet, but it's called Few Flowered Verbene, something like that. I've since lost the label. It's another one that's kind of sent its tendrils everywhere, and I can tell might be a little weedy mess in a few years. For now, though, I'll see if it tracks butterflies or something along with that. And coming around here, it's probably the best example of Trillium grandiflorum in my garden. You can see they stay white for 4 days to a week, and then they start turning various shades of pink and magenta. The longer they're out, this one's just blushing up. Oh, there's our local fire alarm, or fire department. This is called Cream Violet. And it looks like there was a bloodroot there, but that's since done its thing. These are Trillium, which are very pretty. They're white, just like Trillium grandiflorum, but the backs of the petals are all pink, and as they age, they just they turn more pink, and they kind of shrivel up into little toothpicks before they fall out. It's kind of funny how they hang on to them. This is another Trillium grandiflorum. This one actually opened up kind of pink, so maybe I lucked out there. Alright, we're going to wait a second for the fire alarm to stop. Alright, fire alarm seems to be done. These are foam flower down here, and that is my annoying dog barking in the background. So these are more fernleaf phacelia, and it's kind of seeds everywhere. I don't mind, you think I've stepped on someone, or someone stepped on some of these. And then we have Golden Alexander here. This used to be a great big patch of Golden Alexander, but then I put the swing here. There's our dog, Annabelle, sniffing at something in the garden. Up above here we have a pawpaw tree, which quite a lot of flowers, and a crabapple over there. The white balance is a bit off, so hopefully we can get to it. Here's a queen bumblebee of some kind, collecting pollen, so she's already committed to a nest somewhere, hopefully somewhere nearby, because my yard's full of flowers. More grandiflorum. The trouble with pawpaws is they are grove forming, so this pawpaw here is part of the same tree, and so is that one, and so are these huge trunks. So are these behind me, which are, probably don't need two of those next to each other. So is this one, and so on, whenever you see that leaf, basically. So I do need to weed those out on occasion. Down here, this is wild ginger, which the seeds are supposed to be spread by ants, but I've never really gotten one to be successful at that. They lay their flowers right on the ground. There's a bunch of them. I believe they're trying to be pollinated by carrion beetles, but I guess I don't get too many of those in the yard. And I have another Trillium species here. It's a little later than Erectum to open up. Trillium sulcatum, salutum. I forgot what it is offhand. Oh dear. Somebody broke that one for me. And clobbered these. These are trout lilies, and they were among the first native plants for me to put in the ground like 14 years ago. And finally, 5 individuals have decided to flower. We're past that stage here, but ants do disperse the seeds, which is good because I hope to promote the non-clonal form of this plant as much as I can. Each leaf here is a single plant, except for the ones that flower. Those all have 2 leaves because they have to fuel the seed head, or the seed bulb, or whatever. So there's that to look forward to. So I can disperse the seeds. I'm told the roots to these are edible, but I've never thought to dig them up for that purpose, so I may have to, given that they're spreading into the path by quite a bit here. What were you? Woodland phlox, that's what you were. And probably a good example of Trillium sessile here, or what I'm calling Trillium sessile. It's only in the sessile group. Over here is a garden in progress. I'm hoping to get more of, I feel like a taller example of yellow, as opposed to just the the woodland poppy, or celandine poppy as it's sometimes called. Also called calodine poppy, depending on how you pronounce the C. I don't know what a celandine or calodine is, so I've always called them woodland poppy. And this is that patch up close. You can see honeybees really love this native Phacelia, or friendly Phacelia, which is not native to my county, but is native to New Jersey. But I'm told that population will probably be snuffed out by weeds and deer pressure probably within 10 years or so. So, even though it's not technically native here, I think it would be a shame to let it go extinct, for that type of reason. More Trillium erectum. These are the newer plants I got. And for some reason they have yellower pollen. Or the pollen is more yellow on these individuals. Or from this population. I need to watch where I step in the garden to get decent camera angles. But they are getting pollinated by these same flies. And I think the flower is very charming on these. Oh, the great thing about woodland poppy here is they're still producing new flowers by the time the first seed pod opens. Now, none of those are opened yet, but give them a week and they'll be dropping seeds like crazy. And then there's this is red buckeye, which is a small tree. It's sort of a shrub. This actually produced flowers when it was only about 2 feet tall. So, I mean, they do that every year. Hummingbirds are supposed to be the first thing to pollinate it, or they migrate up with it. I've never really seen one use it. We usually get those a little bit later in the year. But it's here if they want to come up early. Not much else to talk about over here, other than the friendly Phacelia. This is a biannual, and these are all of last year's seeds, so that's what you have to look forward to. So if I wanted to transplant these somewhere, which I probably should, it's kind of put these in pots or something and let them take over a different garden somewhere else, or maybe go along the fence line so I have a nice wave of purple over there. Now's the time to start thinking about that type of stuff. Alternatively, they have foliage in the winter time, and it's a very pretty color too. The twisted Trillium here, along with our native violet. I can point that out while I'm over here. This is our native violet, but the red form. And out front I have the white form of this. Also, viola starts with an S. Whatever the New Jersey state flower is, but anyway, I have those. I had bloodroot. Done flowering for the year, but that's what the leaf to these do here. I don't think any of the flowers or the seed pods survive to these. I don't know why, but wildlife just loves to eat. Here's one. So I might be able to film those too. This is another one that's diverse, spread by ants. It was kind of the main theme with this garden here, is I wanted plants that get spread by ants, and then I put in the friendly Phacelia just for color, because it kind of looks, it's like a sea of yellow and the purple or whatever, and some random pansies and Easter things here. Coming around, this part of the garden is a little bit drier, so I have troubles getting it looks so easy, just one garden over, over here. But some things are kind of hanging on. But this Trillium here, I photographed ants dispersing the seeds, or bringing the seed pods into a nest that was here. That nest is no longer there, but One of them was successful many years ago, and I believe there are things otherwise. Yeah, these are other success stories to ant plant seed dispersal. So anyway, that's the bulk of what's flowering. We're getting into like the full sun areas of the garden, which there's no need to race the tree line filling in, because these are all plants that are going to have full access to the sun pretty much just as soon as they get up here and going. I see a plastic bird bath I need to pick up and a bunch of other things here. But wild camassia, a patch of tulips, roses I tried giving a try here, a whole bunch of goldenrod, amsonias in here, and then a bunch of asters also. And directly next to me is a coral honeysuckle in dire need of pruning, and then we have a honeybee nest and a black cherry and a what is it? Eastern redbud. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much all the highlights of the garden right now. Thank you for watching.